For my daughter's 6th birthday, my in-laws sent her a cute brown teddy bear as a gift. She looked happy at first, then froze. "Mommy, what is it?" I looked closer and went pale. I didn't shout. I took action. 3 days later, police were at their door. Mia's 6th birthday was supposed to be simple. Cupcakes, paper hats, 3 little girls shrieking in my living room like tiny opera singers who'd been raised entirely on glitter and spite. The problem with simple is that it requires your life to also be simple, and mine very much was not. I was in the middle of divorcing Adam. The paperwork was floating around like a bad smell. The tension was everywhere and nowhere, which is a fun way to live when you're trying to keep a 6-year-old from noticing her world is being rearranged. So I tried to compensate. I went full birthday mom. I put up streamers. I made goodie bags. I baked cupcakes from scratch instead of doing the normal person thing and buying them from a grocery store bakery that employs professionals and probably has a health certificate. I even invited my parents to stay. I don't know why I did that. Maybe guilt. Maybe self-harm. Maybe I wanted witnesses in case I snapped and started eating frosting directly out of the piping bag with my hands. I did. The witnesses were polite. There were 3 friends, Mia's best friends, which changes weekly. But today it was these 3. Their parents hovered with that awkward energy of people trying to be supportive without admitting they've already asked their spouse. So, are Michelle and Adam, you know? I smiled too much. I laughed too fast. I used the voice you use when you're hosting a baby shower for someone you hate. Everything was fine. Mia was fine. And then the mail came. It was a neat pink box with a bow that looked like it had been measured and tied by a person who irons bedsheets. Janet and Frank. My in-laws. The type of people who believe presentation is character. There was a note taped to the top for Mia open today, because of course Janet and Frank weren't coming to this party. Mia was having another birthday with Adam a few days later. Her dad's birthday, as Mia called it. Like Adam was the one turning 6, and not just the one who would probably show up late and then blame traffic for the concept of time. But Janet and Frank wanted their gift opened now, so we added it to the pile. Kids opening presents together is chaos in a pure form, like a natural disaster with better wrapping paper. Mia ripped through a bag of stickers, squealed at a sparkly water bottle, and held up a plastic unicorn as if she'd discovered fire. Then she grabbed the pink box. "This one is from Grandma and Grandpa," she sang like announcing a new character in a play. She opened it carefully, because Janet taught her to be gentle, which sounds sweet until you realize gentle is just Janet's word for obedient. Inside was a brown teddy bear with a little heart stitched on its chest. Mia's whole face lit up. She loved stuffed animals. She loved anything soft and loyal and silent. Honestly, the same. "Oh my gosh," she whispered, hugging it like it had rescued her from a burning building. The other girls crowded around. "Oh, it's so cute. I want one." One of the dads, a nice guy, vague name, probably Steve, said that bear is going to be her best friend. I laughed, because that's what you do when people say normal things at normal parties. Mia carried the bear off to play, and the house went back to its usual birthday roar. Kids running, parents sipping coffee like it was medication, paper plates stacking up, frosting appearing in places frosting should never be. At the time, it really did feel normal. Not peaceful, not calm, but normal. And that's the thing about normal. You don't realize it's the last time until it's already gone. About 20 minutes later, Mia appeared in the doorway of the living room, a teddy bear in one arm, her little brow pinched the way it gets when she's trying to do math. "Mommy," she called. I turned, still mid-smile, because I was performing. I'm fine, like it was my full-time job. She stepped closer. Mom, she wasn't crying. She wasn't upset, just confused. Then she held up the teddy bear. There was a small opening near one of the seams, like a zipper hidden under fur. The kind you don't notice unless you're the kind of child who believes every object is a mystery waiting to be solved. Mia, what did you do? She squeezed the bear's side and looked up at me. Mommy, she said very quietly. What is it? Her voice did something to me, like a hand reaching inside my chest. I went still. I leaned in, and my skin went cold because inside the bear, just barely visible through the opened seam, was something that definitely wasn't stuffing. Something hard. Something not meant for a child's toy. My stomach dropped so fast I felt it in my knees. My first instinct was to react the way my body wanted to react. To shout. To demand. To call Janet and Frank and ask them what kind of deranged little game they thought this was. But there were 3 little girls behind Mia. There were parents in my living room. There was a birthday cake with candles waiting to be lit. And there was Mia's face looking at me like I was the final answer. So I swallowed it. I made my voice soft. Oh, I said like she'd just shown me a loose button. Let me see it for a second, sweetheart. Mia hesitated. Is it broken? No, I lied. I just want to check something. I took the teddy bear from her hands gently. So gently, like I was holding a bomb. Go play, I said. I'll bring it right back. Mia nodded. Because Mia is a good kid. Because Mia trusts me. Because Mia had no idea she'd just handed me the beginning of the end. I walked down the hallway without rushing. Because rushing would have made the parents look up. And I didn't want questions. Not yet. I stepped into my bedroom, the room Adam and I used to share before the divorce, turned it into neutral territory, and shut the door. My hands were shaking before I even realized I'd started breathing differently. I sat on the edge of the bed with the bear in my lap. I stared at that seam. I stared at the hard shape inside. And I realized something very clearly. Whatever this was, it wasn't an accident. This bear wasn't just a gift. It was a message. My heart thudded once, heavy and slow. I opened the seam a little more, looked, checked, adjusted the bear in my hand so the light hit the inside. My breath went thin, my face went pale, and I felt something in me, something tired and old, finally get angry. Outside my bedroom door, I could hear the party. Laughter, running feet, someone yelling about juice. In my lap, a brown teddy bear sat like it was innocent. It wasn't. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone. I did the only thing I could do. I took a breath. I widened the opening in the seam carefully, like diffusing something dangerous. And there it was. A small recording device. The kind you can buy online for less than $50. Black plastic, about the size of a USB drive, with a tiny red light that wasn't blinking anymore but had clearly been on at some point. Voice activated, store-bought surveillance, tucked inside my daughter's birthday gift. For a second, I couldn't move. My brain was trying to catch up. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't Janet being weird or Frank being inappropriate in that passive way in-laws sometimes are. This was intentional. This was calculated. They'd sewn a recording device into a teddy bear and sent it to a 6-year-old child, knowing she'd carry it everywhere, knowing she'd sleep with it, knowing she'd talk to it the way kids talk to stuffed animals. They wanted to hear her. They wanted to hear me. They wanted access to my home, my words, my life, without permission, without warning, without shame. I pulled the device out slowly. It was warm. It had been on. Recently. I stared at it in my palm like it might bite me. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady. Dangerously steady. The kind of steady you get when you've moved past shock and into something colder. I thought about the divorce. I thought about custody. I thought about Adam's lawyer mentioning fitness as a parent, like it was a casual phrase and not a threat wrapped in legal paper. I thought about Janet and Frank, who'd never liked me, who'd made it clear from day one that I wasn't good enough for their son, who smiled at me like I was a temporary inconvenience they were waiting to outlast. And now this, a spy device, in my daughter's room, on her birthday. I stood up. I put the device on my dresser. I looked at the teddy bear, innocent and soft and betrayed by the people who'd sent it. Then I picked up my phone. Not to call Janet and Frank. Not yet. Because if I called them now, I'd scream. And screaming wouldn't solve this. Screaming would make me look unstable, which is exactly what they wanted. Evidence. Ammunition. Proof that Michelle is losing it. So I took pictures instead. The device, the bear, the opened seam, the pink box with their handwriting on the card. I documented everything like I was building a case, because I was. Then I went back to the party. I smiled. I sang happy birthday. I cut the cake. I handed out goodie bags. I thanked the parents for coming. I hugged Mia and told her I loved her. And the whole time, in the back of my mind, I was planning. After everyone left, after Mia was asleep with her actual safe stuffed animals, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and the recording device. I didn't turn it on. I didn't want to know what they'd captured yet. I wasn't ready for that level of violation. Instead, I started researching. Wiretapping laws, consent requirements, illegal surveillance, penalties. Turns out, hiding a recording device in someone's home without their knowledge is a crime. A serious one. Federal in some cases. And definitely illegal in mine. And doing it to a child? That added layers. Layers that made my hands stop shaking entirely and start moving with purpose. I made a list. I always make lists when I'm angry. It keeps me focused. 1. Secure the evidence. 2. Contact a lawyer. 3. File a police report. 4. Make sure Janet and Frank never ever underestimate me again. I looked at that list for a long time. Then I added a 5th item. Protect Mia. Because that's what this was really about. They'd weaponized her innocence. They'd turned her birthday into a surveillance operation. And I was done playing nice. The next morning I woke up with clarity. The kind you get after a night of rage that's calcified into determination. I called my lawyer first, Rebecca. She'd been handling the divorce, which meant she already knew Janet and Frank's particular brand of helpful interference. I told her about the bear. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then she said, in the calmest voice I'd ever heard, "Michelle, do not touch that device again. Don't turn it on. Don't play it. Don't let anyone else touch it. Bring it to my office today. We're filing a police report before lunch. This just became a criminal matter, and Adam's parents just handed you the most powerful piece of evidence in your custody case." I felt something loosen in my chest. Validation. Someone else seeing what I saw. Someone else confirming that, yes, this was insane, and yes, they'd crossed a line so far over that they couldn't see the line anymore. Rebecca told me to document everything, every interaction, every text, every voicemail. If they contacted me about anything, I was to screenshot it, save it, and forward it to her immediately. Before I even made it to her office that afternoon, my phone buzzed. A text from Janet. Hope Mia loved the bear. Let us know if she names it. Send pictures. There were 3 exclamation points. 3. Like enthusiasm could hide intent. I stared at that message for a solid minute. Then I screenshotted it and sent it to Rebecca with no comment. She replied immediately, "Perfect. They're establishing a paper trail. Let them." And you know what? I realized something sitting in Rebecca's office. The teddy bear and the device sealed in a plastic evidence bag on her desk. If you're still watching this video right now, I need to pause and tell you something personal. When I started this channel, I wasn't sure anyone would care about these stories. My mother, bless her, told me straight up, You're not going to hit even 1,000 subscribers talking about revenge and betrayal. People don't want to hear this stuff. But here's the thing. I believe these stories matter. I believe your story matters. The times you were wronged, the times you stood up for yourself, the times you refused to be silent. Those moments deserve to be heard. So if you're listening to this right now, you're part of proving something important. You're showing that people do care, that these experiences aren't just drama, they're survival, they're justice. And every single one of you who subscribes, who comments, who shares this, you're helping build something bigger than my mother, or Janet and Frank, or anyone else ever thought possible. You're saying, these voices matter, so thank you, from the bottom of my heart. Now let's get back to making sure Janet and Frank regretted every single choice that led them to this moment. Rebecca walked me through the process. We'd file the police report first, let them investigate. Meanwhile, she'd file an emergency motion in family court to suspend Adam's parents' visitation rights pending the outcome of the criminal investigation. She said the words emergency motion like they were a weapon, and I loved her for it. She also suggested I not tell Adam immediately. Let him find out from his parents. Let him have to choose whose side he's on without me framing it first. That felt risky. But Rebecca said, Michelle, you've spent this entire marriage protecting him from his parents' behavior. You've been the buffer. You've made excuses. You've smoothed things over. Let him see them without your filter for once. Let him defend this if he can. I realized she was right. For years, I'd been translating Janet and Frank's cruelty into something Adam could digest. Oh, they didn't mean it like that. They're just old-fashioned. They're trying to help. I'd been their PR team, and it had cost me. Not anymore. The police report took 3 hours. I sat in a fluorescent-lit room and told my story to a detective who looked like he'd heard everything and was still somehow surprised. He photographed the device. He took the bear. He asked questions about Adam, about the custody case, about whether I felt safe. That last one hit me weird. Did I feel safe? I'd never thought about it like that. But no. No, I didn't. Not really. Not when people who were supposed to love my daughter were willing to spy on her to win a legal battle. The detective told me they'd follow up within 72 hours. He said the words, illegal surveillance, an invasion of privacy, and potential charges with the kind of weight that made me realize this wasn't going away quietly. This was real. This was documented. This was happening. I walked out of that police station feeling lighter than I had in months. Not happy. Not relieved. But lighter. Like I'd been carrying something heavy and finally set it down. 2 days later, the police showed up at Janet and Frank's house. I didn't know this immediately. What I knew was that at approximately 10 in the morning, while I was making Mia breakfast and trying to act like the world wasn't actively catching fire, my phone started blowing up. First, Adam. 3 missed calls in 5 minutes. Then Janet, then Frank, then Adam's sister, who I hadn't spoken to in 6 months, then Adam again. I let them all go to voicemail. Rebecca had coached me on this. Do not engage until you hear from me. Let them panic. Let them scramble. Let them show their cards first. So I poured orange juice. I helped Mia with her cereal. I pretended my phone wasn't vibrating itself off the counter like a desperate insect. Finally, Adam left a voicemail. His voice was strained, angry, confused. Michelle, what the hell did you do? The police just left my parents' house. They're talking about recording devices and criminal charges, and you filing a report. Call me back. Now. I saved the voicemail. Then I listened to Janet's. Hers was different. Controlled. Cold. Michelle, I don't know what you think you're accomplishing, but this is going to backfire. We were trying to protect Mia. If you're unfit to care for her, we have a responsibility to document that. Call us so we can resolve this like adults. I actually laughed. Out loud. alone in my kitchen. Like adults. Like surveilling your grandchild was the mature choice. Like planting a device in her teddy bear was responsible parenting. I forwarded both voicemails to Rebecca. She called me 10 minutes later, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Michelle, they just admitted it. On record. Janet admitted they were documenting you? That's conspiracy. That's intent. This is even better than I thought. She told me the police had seized the device, confirmed it was functional, and were in the process of reviewing what it had recorded. She also said Janet and Frank had lawyered up immediately, which wasn't surprising, but was telling. The emergency motion was filed that afternoon. Judge reviewed it the next morning. By noon, Adam's parents' visitation rights were suspended pending a full hearing. Rebecca called to tell me, and I had to sit down. It was working. The plan was actually working. They'd overplayed their hand so badly that the system, which usually moves like a glacier, had snapped into action. Adam showed up at my house that evening. I'd been expecting it. Mia was at a friend's house for a playdate, which I'd arranged specifically so she wouldn't have to see this. He didn't knock. He had a key technically, though I'd asked for it back 3 times. He walked in like he still lived there, which he didn't, and looked at me like I'd betrayed him, which was rich. Michelle, he started, and I held up my hand. No, I said, you don't get to walk in here and make this about you. Your parents put a recording device in our daughter's teddy bear. Do you understand that? They spied on a 6-year-old. They violated our home. They broke the law. And you're mad at me? He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. They said they were worried about you. They said you've been unstable since the separation. They said they needed to make sure Mia was safe. I felt something inside me go very, very quiet. Unstable, I repeated. Because I filed for divorce? Because I didn't want to stay married to someone who chose his parents over his wife at every single turn? That's unstable. Adam looked at the floor. He looked tired. He looked like a man who'd been told 2 versions of reality and didn't know which one to believe. So I gave him the 3rd version, the true one. Your parents have never respected me, I said. They've undermined me. They've criticized me. They've made it clear I'm not good enough for you or for Mia. And when I finally stood up for myself, when I finally said I'm done, they didn't respect that either. They decided to spy on me, to gather evidence, to build a case that I'm a bad mother so they can control the narrative. And you're standing here defending them. He didn't answer. He just stood there, looking smaller than I remembered. Finally, he said, "What do you want me to do?" I almost laughed. What do I want you to do? I want you to be a father. I want you to protect your daughter from people who think it's okay to spy on her. I want you to look at what your parents did and feel disgusted instead of defensive. But I don't think you can do that, and that's the problem. He left. No argument, no defense, no apology, just left. And I stood there in the doorway watching him go, realizing that I'd already grieved this marriage. I'd already mourned what I thought we were. This was just the paperwork catching up. The divorce was always going to happen. But this was me taking control of how it happened. This was me refusing to be the villain in their story. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal proceedings, therapy sessions for Mia, and a level of documentation that would make the IRS jealous. The police investigation concluded that Janet and Frank had knowingly and intentionally placed a recording device in our home without consent. They were charged with illegal surveillance. The district attorney was especially interested in the fact that a minor was involved. Apparently, using a child as an unwitting courier for surveillance equipment adds extra layers of seriously bad idea to an already terrible decision. Their lawyer tried to argue that they had grandparents' rights, that they were concerned about Mia's welfare, that I'd been alienating them from their grandchild, and they'd had no choice but to take matters into their own hands. Rebecca tore that argument apart in under 10 minutes. She presented the timeline, the divorce filing, the custody dispute, the sudden concern for Mia's welfare that coincidentally aligned with legal proceedings. She pointed out that if they were truly worried, there were legal channels: family court, child protective services, mediation. But they didn't choose any of those options. They chose espionage. The judge was not impressed at all. Suspended visitation became supervised visitation, which became visitation pending completion of a parenting course and a psychological evaluation, which, let's be honest, they were never going to pass. The criminal charges were resolved with a plea deal: probation, a fine, and a permanent record that would make background checks very interesting for them. But more importantly, it became part of the custody record. Permanently. Adam tried to salvage his relationship with Mia. To his credit, he showed up to his custody days on time. He stopped letting his parents bulldoze him. He even apologized, eventually, in the kind of hollow way people apologize when they know they should, but don't fully understand why. I didn't forgive him. Not really. But I didn't need to. Forgiveness wasn't the goal. Boundaries were. Mia asked about the teddy bear exactly once. "Mommy, where's the bear from Grandma and Grandpa?" I told her the truth, in the kind of age-appropriate way you tell a 6-year-old something terrible. "The bear was broken inside, sweetie. It had something in it that wasn't safe. So we can't keep it. But all your other stuffed animals are perfect." She accepted this without question, the way kids do, and moved on. I envied her that. The ability to hear bad news and then just keep being a kid. I didn't hear from Janet or Frank directly for months. Then, out of nowhere, I got a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A physical letter. Like we were in a period drama. It was from Janet. It was 4 pages long. It was not an apology. It was an explanation. A justification. A carefully worded argument for why everything they'd done had been reasonable and necessary, and actually my fault for being difficult. I read it once. Then I put it in a folder labeled Evidence and never looked at it again. Because that's what it was. Not a peace offering, evidence. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. I got primary custody. Adam got every other weekend and Wednesdays. His parents got nothing. Well, not nothing. They got the consequences of their own actions, which is a kind of gift if you think about it. A really, really expensive gift that comes with a criminal record and the permanent knowledge that they sabotaged their own relationship with their grandchild because they couldn't stand to lose control. I moved. Not far, but far enough that they didn't know the address unless Adam told them. And he knew better than to do that without asking me first. Mia started first grade. She made new friends. She stopped asking why we didn't see Grandma and Grandpa anymore. She just accepted the new normal, because kids are resilient in ways that break your heart and put it back together at the same time. I started therapy. Real therapy, not just the kind where you vent to a friend over wine. I needed to process the fact that people I'd tried to have a relationship with for years had been willing to weaponize my own daughter to hurt me. That takes time to unpack. That takes more than a few sessions and some breathing exercises. But I did the work, because Mia was watching. Because I wanted her to grow up seeing that when people hurt you, you don't just survive, you heal. You set boundaries. You protect yourself. You don't let them take your peace. Looking back now, almost 2 years later, I can see the whole thing clearly. Not just what happened, but why it mattered. Janet and Frank thought they were entitled to access, to information, to control. They thought being grandparents meant they got to override my decisions as a parent. And when I pushed back, when I said no, that's not how this works. They escalated. They didn't sit down and have a conversation. They didn't go to mediation. They didn't respect boundaries. They put a recording device in a teddy bear. And here's what I want you to understand if you're in a situation even remotely like this. That's not love. That's control. Love respects boundaries. Love trusts. Love asks questions instead of spying for answers. What they did wasn't about protecting Mia. It was about punishing me. It was about gathering ammunition. It was about making sure that if they couldn't have what they wanted, they'd burn down everything I'd built to get it. I think about that birthday party sometimes. The cupcakes, the streamers, the parents hovering awkwardly, the pink box with the perfect bow. How normal it all looked. How normal it felt, right up until it didn't. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up wrapped in pretty paper with a note that says, "Open me." And you do, because you're supposed to trust family. Because you're supposed to believe that people who claim to love your child actually do. But trust isn't automatic. It's earned. And when it's broken, especially like that, it doesn't just heal. It transforms. I don't trust blindly anymore. I verify. I ask questions. I check seams. Not just in teddy bears, but in relationships, in intentions, in the things people say versus the things they do. That's not paranoia. That's survival. That's learning. Mia doesn't remember the details. She knows Grandma and Grandpa did something wrong and we don't see them anymore. She knows it wasn't her fault. She knows she's safe. That's enough. That's all she needs to carry. The rest? The rage, the violation, the courtrooms, the lawyers, the sleepless nights, wondering if I was doing the right thing? That's mine. That's my weight to carry so she doesn't have to. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled it, if I think I should have just confronted them privately, if going to the police was too far. And I think about Mia's face that day, confused and trusting, while I'm holding up a teddy bear that was supposed to be a gift but was actually a trap. I think about what would have happened if I hadn't looked inside. If she'd kept that bear in her room for weeks, for months, recording her playing, her crying, her talking to herself the way kids do when they think no one's listening. I think about the violation of that, the sickness of it. And no, I don't regret it. Not for a second. They made a choice. They chose surveillance over relationship. They chose control over connection. They chose to see me as an enemy instead of as the mother of their grandchild. And when you make choices like that, you don't get to be surprised by the consequences. You don't get to cry foul when the person you tried to hurt fights back. You don't get to rewrite the story and pretend you were the victim. I protected my daughter. I enforced boundaries that should have never needed to be enforced. I used the legal system the way it's supposed to be used, to hold people accountable when they break the law. And yeah, it was messy. It was hard. It was expensive and exhausting, and sometimes I wanted to just give up and let them win because fighting was so damn tiring. But I didn't. Because Mia was watching. Because she needed to see that when someone hurts you, you don't have to smile and take it. You can say no. You can fight back. You can protect yourself and the people you love, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Adam and I are cordial now. Co-parents who text about school pickup times and doctor's appointments and whether Mia needs a new winter coat. It's not friendship. It's not reconciliation. It's just functional. And that's okay. That's more than I thought we'd have, honestly. He sees his daughter. He pays child support on time. He stopped defending his parents. That's enough. That's progress. Janet and Frank tried to send Mia a birthday card this year. It arrived in the mail, addressed to her in Janet's perfect handwriting. I didn't open it. I photographed it, documented the date, and sent it to Rebecca with a note. Exhibit A. Continued contact after court order. Then I threw it away. Because some doors, once closed, stay closed. Some bridges, once burned, aren't worth rebuilding. And some people, no matter how much they claim to have changed, have shown you exactly who they are. Believe them. So here's what I learned. Here's what I want you to take away from this, if you're in your own version of this nightmare. Document everything. Trust your instincts. And don't let people gaslight you into thinking your boundaries are unreasonable. Don't let family guilt you into accepting behavior you wouldn't tolerate from a stranger. And when someone shows you they're willing to cross a line, believe them, because they'll cross it again and again until you stop them. You deserve to be safe in your own home. You deserve to not be surveilled. You deserve to parent your child without sabotage. And if that means cutting people off, if that means legal action, if that means being called dramatic or vindictive or unforgiving, so be it. Your peace is worth more than their approval. Your child's safety is worth more than their comfort. And you don't owe anyone access to your life just because they're related to you. Mia turned 8 last month. We had a small party, just her best friend, pizza, and a movie. No fancy decorations, no elaborate goodie bags, no stress. She got a stuffed bunny from her friend's mom. I checked every seam before I let her take it to her room. Force of habit. There was nothing inside, except stuffing. Normal, innocent, safe stuffing. I cried a little after she went to sleep. Not from sadness, from relief, from the realization that we'd made it, that we were okay, that the nightmare was over and we'd come out the other side. I tell this story not because I'm proud of what happened, but because I'm proud that I didn't let it destroy me. I'm proud that I protected my kid. I'm proud that I drew a line and held it even when people told me I was overreacting. Because here's the truth. When someone violates your boundaries, when someone weaponizes your child, when someone uses love as a disguise for control, you're not overreacting. You're reacting appropriately to something deeply fundamentally wrong. Betrayal isn't always loud. Sometimes it comes in a pink box with a bow. Sometimes it looks like concern. Sometimes it sounds like I'm just worried about you. But if you listen closely, if you look carefully, you'll see it for what it is. And when you do, you get to choose. You can ignore it. You can excuse it. You can let it slide because confrontation is uncomfortable and family is complicated and maybe they didn't really mean it that way. Or you can say no. You can protect yourself. You can enforce consequences. You can walk away. I chose the second option, and yeah, it cost me. It cost me a relationship with my in-laws. It cost me the fantasy of a peaceful divorce. It cost me sleep and money and probably a few years off my life from stress. But it gave me something worth more than all of that. It gave me my daughter's safety. It gave me my peace. It gave me the knowledge that when it mattered most, I didn't back down. I didn't make excuses. I didn't protect people who didn't deserve protection. I protected the person who mattered most, my child. So if you're watching this and you're in a situation where someone is crossing your boundaries, where someone is making you question your own sanity, where someone is using family as an excuse to hurt you, here's my advice. Stop wondering if you're overreacting. Stop asking yourself if it's really that bad. Stop waiting for permission to protect yourself. You don't need permission. You need action. You need boundaries. You need to be willing to lose relationships that were hurting you anyway. And if people call you dramatic, let them. If they say you're being unfair, let them. If they accuse you of overreacting or being vindictive or not giving people a second chance, let them. Because the people who matter, the people who actually love you, will understand. They'll support you. They'll say, I'm so sorry that happened, and what can I do to help instead of, why can't you just forgive them? Mia's growing up in a home where boundaries are respected, where her voice matters, where she doesn't have to perform for people who don't value her. She's learning that love isn't conditional, that family doesn't mean tolerating abuse, that she gets to decide who has access to her life and her heart. And that's the real revenge, isn't it? Not the police report or the court orders or the criminal charges. It's raising a kid who won't tolerate the same garbage I did. It's breaking the cycle. It's teaching her that she deserves better, that we all deserve better. For my daughter's 6th birthday, My in-laws sent her a teddy bear with a recording device inside. They thought they were gathering evidence. They thought they were being clever. They thought they could spy their way into control. Instead, they handed me the ammunition I needed to protect my child and myself. They handed me proof of their intentions. They handed me the consequences they deserved. And every time I think about that moment, that cold realization in my bedroom with the party noise outside, I'm grateful. Not for what they did, but for what I did next. I didn't scream. I didn't collapse. I didn't let them win. I took action. And 3 days later, police were at their door. Justice isn't always swift, but when it comes, when you've documented everything and held your ground and refused to be gaslit, it's satisfying in a way few things are. It's validation. It's protection. It's proof that you weren't crazy for drawing that line. You were right. So that's my story. That's my revenge. That's my lesson. Protect your peace. Enforce your boundaries. Document everything. And when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Don't wait for the second betrayal or the third. Don't give them chances they won't use to change. Just protect yourself and the people you love. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Not what they think. Not what they say. Not whether they ever admit they were wrong. Just that you and your child are safe and free and moving forward without them.